Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here today with the latest episode of our CSFL Kickoff Show podcast, the first one of the 2015 season. And well, it wouldn't be a start of a 2015 season if we didn't throw in a preview. And to try and break this down, we have two regulars on the show. We have the Titans GM, Josh. Josh, welcome back to the show. It's been a long off season, but we're back and we're one game in so far.
Yeah, no, man. It feels like it's been a really long time since we've done one of these. So I'm glad to have a new season starting. It's the first smell of sim football in the air.
Yeah, can't beat it. You can't beat it when the season starts, and that means everyone can focus on the actual games themselves and not worrying about drafts and free agencies, and everyone sort of has optimism, and we're going to try and sort of break down some of that today. And then the other guest I've got on the show, again, another regular, the Lions assistant GM, Robbie. Robbie, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a great time of the season. It's the time of the season where everyone thinks that they have a chance in making the playoffs. Everyone thinks they can achieve something that probably the 31 teams will not actually be able to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. But who knows? I mean, there can only be one winner, and the winner last year was Dennis with the Baltimore Ravens. Who knows what's going to happen this year? But to try and break that down, we do have Zach's primer, the Green Bay Packers GM, who prepares this every single season for us, and it's a fantastic write-up. And well, we're going to use this and this great tool that we have to try and break down each division. And well, best place to start probably is in the AFC. And in particular, the AFC East is the top of the list on Zach's preview. So, I mean, I'm going to throw the floor open, I think, first of all, to our AFC GM in this podcast, Josh. Josh, what's your take on the AFC East this year?
So, first off, thank you to Zach for doing his yearly preview. I mean, it's just awesome that we have some consistency with this every single year. So, just really want to, give us some appreciation for that because he usually joins us on this one, but he couldn't make it this time. So starting on the AFC East, this is the hardest division for me to predict. I think a lot of people have said that, and it's just this one's just really up in the air. And a lot of the GMs are just, some of them seem to have really gotten their footing under them within the last season or two. So I really have a hard time with this one. If I had to lean any sort of way, I'm honestly going to be, over predictable and lean towards the Patriots. But I really liked what the Bills did last year, and I really think Toasty has come up with a lot. So, the Bills are going to be a team to watch. And the other two, I'm just a little iffy on, the Dolphins and the Jets. The Dolphins lost a little bit of what made them great last year in their run game. And the Jets have a new GM, and that.
So I believe we were partway through Josh giving us a bit of a narrative there. Rob, do you want to jump in and give your views on this fast?
Yeah. Well,
try and get Josh back.
Get Josh back. I'm in full agreement with Josh, to be honest, and I think that the AFC is hard, but the AFC East is hard to predict in two ways. Because I think all four teams are capable of winning the division quite comfortably, but I also think all four teams are probably their own worst nightmare at it. I think that the Bills have done a lot of improvement over the last couple of weeks of last season and heading into this one as well. And have we got Josh back, I think?
Yeah, that was really weird. I
okay.
was still here. Where did it cut off on me? Okay.
Hello?
So I believe you were talking about the Bills. And
I was talking about the Bills. Yeah. I really like what Toasty's done this year, and I think the Bills are a really good young team. So if I had to pick any other team other than the Patriots, I'd pick the Bills. Those are my two standouts from that division. And I'm not sure if you heard it, but I said the Dolphins and the Jets kind of just lost a little, I feel like, coming into this season. I think that Emplay's really figured out the game, but I think that the running backs situation for the Dolphins kind of changed, and I'm kind of interested to see how that goes along with their line. And the Jets just, with a new GM, I have no idea how a new GM is going to play. So you just kind of have to watch that. But if you had to tell me to pick one, I'd pick the Patriots.
So Josh is going for the Patriots. Rob, what was your take? Partway through that, but what's your take on the?
I think I will be boring and have to pick Patriots, but just purely just for the sake of discussion, I will go with the Bills. But I would like to preface this with I think that the reason that the AFC East, as in a particular, is such a difficult division to predict is that we all know that each one of those teams has one massive problem with it. Um, and as good as they can be, that one problem with them can at any moment in time sort of result in that team going anything from 12-4 to 6-10. I think all four of those teams, like for example, the Bills' run defense is just so bad that if they come up against a team that is heavy run, and they have three other teams in that division that can be heavy run, they can be a problem. Uh, Rizzo is always one tequila away from having the worst playbook in the league again. The Dolphins losing Charles is massive, but I think their defense is good enough to get games for them. And Jets, I always have one asterisk with any new GM because we really don't really know what work they've put into it, and we don't know what we have had in the past, what experience they have in the past. So I always have that asterisk for the new GMs. So yeah, I'll agree that it's a hard division, but just for the sake of argument, I'll go with Bills.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a split decision there, I guess. Josh going for the Patriots, you're going for the Bills. I guess interesting things here is that you've got two teams that obviously performed very well towards the back end of last season, and then the Dolphins who performed very well at the start of the season, then faded away particularly, and then the Jets who again started strongly and faded away. And it's going to be interesting to see whether that narrative continues this year, whether two of these teams are going to start strong and then come back, and two of them are maybe going to start a little bit slower and then come back later on. But I guess that gives us a nice little narrative to move into the AFC North, and I'll throw the floor open to you, Rob, first for this one. Ravens are the Super Bowl champions. What else do you see happening in this division?
First of all, before we go into anything, I'd like to say a quick congratulations to the Bengals and that amazing extension they got with Thomas, the free safety. He's that good of a player that it was well worth paying up to keep him, and it wasn't even that much more to get him than what he paid for him in what the Bengals got for him in free agency. So that's amazing that he got him for 3 years, 10 mil. Look, when the Super Bowl winners are in division, you can't not favor them over anyone. Like it's a similar situation of when the Titans have won their league, the Super Bowl. You can't not favor them to win it the following season as well. We don't have the Super Bowl hangovers per se as we have in real life. So I just don't think the Browns are quite there with the roster that V Gorilla might want for him to realistically knock Dennis off the top of that division just yet. I think he is one off season away from that. The Bengals and the Steelers. The Bengals made a few good moves, but it's just such a tough division when they both have to make up such a huge gap on what is essentially an experienced GM getting the roster that he wants in V Gorilla and the Super Bowl champs. The gap between those two top teams and two bottom teams of that division is just that great that it will take more than 2 seasons, I think, to have them get close to it. I don't expect that to change too much. Not for the 2015, not for the 2016 season either. Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, interesting. I guess, Josh, do you agree with that sentiment that there's two teams at the top of this division, two teams at the bottom, and the gap is still quite wide?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that wholeheartedly. I do want to, again, with Robbie, I agree that the Bengals made a fantastic signing, and we should definitely celebrate anything that a team does when a new GM comes in, especially when they're making moves towards making the league more competitive. The Browns, I think, are going to surprise us all. I just really think that it's been a slow march for them, and I keep looking at that defense, and I think that he's got a really good hold on the changes and what's been going on, which I would expect from the amount of testing that I'm sure he's been doing behind the scenes. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Browns return to the powerhouse they were at the beginning of the league's history. and just making my entire conference just even more relationship than it already is. The Ravens are the champ, so I'm just never going to say anything negative about the champ. I've been there before. I'd have to say that the season after, when you get that monster schedule, is just wild, and I really hope that he can hold through without the injuries and have a really good chance to defend his title, because that's one thing you want when you have a title, is you want to have the chance to defend it. But I can speak from personal experience that for me, they seem to my successful seasons, even with just getting that far, seem to be every other season. So that that killer schedule you get the next year is it's really hard. But the gap again, just you have to mention it. I don't think the Bengals are as competitive as the other two teams, especially when you consider the AFC as a whole, and that they're going to continue to make smart moves because just from personally talking with their new GM, I think that he's a solid guy who kind of has a plan for that team, but it's going to take a while. I think they have a good foundation, and same for the Steelers. I think that their GM again, I think he's related to our Green Bay GM, so he's got someone in the corner that can give him down advice. But I think for those two teams, it's just going to be a bit of a rebuild. But the Raiders have proven you can do it quickly, so I don't want to say that it's not possible. But we'll see. But if I had to say anything, it would be it's between the Browns and the Ravens, and I just give the Ravens the edge because they're the champ.
Yeah, no, I mean you certainly can't discount the champions. They are champions for a reason, and the roster's back, so can't certainly knock Dennis and the Ravens in that sense. I guess before I throw it back to you guys in terms of who you think out of the Browns or the Ravens are kind of going to win this division. I just want to throw out that I think probably the Bengals might be one of the most improved teams this year. Maybe not necessarily in record, but maybe in just how they restructure that roster going into next season. I think that could be a considerable one-season jump we might see there, based on discussions I've had with the GM of the Bengals who joined in the off-season. But obviously we're focusing on division winners here. Rob, who's your division winner out of the Browns and the Ravens?
I hate to say this, but Dennis.
Yeah, the champion, you can't discount him. Josh, do you agree, or do you think the Browns finally pip them to the post like Zach has said here?
Yeah, like I said, it's Dennis. That team is just that team's defense is really good.
Okay, cool. Well, we've got a consensus going forward at the minute. Let's move our way on to the AFC South. Josh, let's start with you then. You're obviously in this division. You obviously recognise how tough this division was last year. It was just absolute madness. Do you see that continuing this year?
Yeah, I don't see anything changing. I see all of us approaching double-digit wins, and all of us wondering if it's going to take winning at least one of our series is against one of the three to get the edge. Most of us in the last season we all split, it seemed. So it's a battlefield. This year, if I'll just go ahead and say it. I think if I can get the run game going again, I think I can snatch the division because my schedule's easier. But that being said, I do think the Jags and the Colts are capable of winning it. The Colts more so. I think the Jags took a step backwards this year offensively, and offense was already their problem. So that was a bit surprising for me to see. But their defense, as it does every year, continues to get better and better. So I think at some point maybe they'll just go complete Legion of Boom on us and just have a defense that gets touchdowns by itself, and that becomes the determining factor. The Colts have a monstrous offense, one that I think that everyone in the league probably takes a peek at every once in a while just to try to glean something off of, because they, like your offense, are putting up about 30 to 40 points in the regular. But just like last season, their biggest problem is defense. And when they play a team that is just as capable of airing the ball out long, they usually get beaten because those teams can get just one or two more stops, and that's usually the difference. And the Texans are hopefully getting another piece to add to luck, because I don't see it. That team's been kind of dismantled. So if I had to pick a team, I wouldn't pick myself because it's just something I don't do. But I think that I have a good chance to win it, and I would lean towards the Colts.
Interesting. I guess, Rob, what's your take on this from an outsider's view?
I would just like to say, first of all, that the hardest division in the league got harder with the return of Aussie. Um, so that not necessarily for this season, but possibly next season, the hardest division in the league just got harder, and I'm quite glad I'm not in it, to be honest, because hoping to get 10 wins to possibly make the playoffs is a bit nerve-wracking, and not 10 wins because you're not good enough, but 10 wins because everyone else is so good in your division. Um, I think, to be honest, that the Titans got better, but not through something that Josh did, through the actual game being more open to running back to QB runs, which sort of like buffed Josh. Um, so without him actually doing anything, he instantly got better, and he also made some good moves anyway, which like sort of goes without saying now with some of the vet GMs. That like the Titans and the Packers and a few others that they just sort of like just going on about this team the Titans made a good free agency move. It's like, yeah, okay, it's like just tell us something that's new. Um, the Colts offense is fascinating to watch. I'm not gonna lie, it's the second game I watch every week after ours. So that's always nice to watch. It just that the defense continues.
Hang on. The second game you watch every week is the Colts. I honestly, if anyone has been watching the Discord chat over the past, well, I don't know, past 2 seasons, surely you watch the Raiders game second.
No, I don't. I actually watch the Colts. The Raiders are lower.
I don't believe you.
I do. I look out for the scores, but I'm more interested in what the Colts do because it's more similar to what we want to do. So there's more things for us to steal from the Colts than from the Raiders. That's the reason, to be honest. So yeah, no.
So that makes sense.
The Jaguars, I envy what they manage to do most of the times on defense. They put pressure without blitzing. They get pressure from everywhere. They get interceptions from everywhere. That is one of those things that I'd like to get. One team that always surprises me how they manage it, and I can't figure it out at all, is how the Steelers are always like top 3 in interceptions on the season. And I've not been able to figure out. I know I'm going to a different division, but I'm just mentioning something that like I envy of that I can't do. It just somehow the Steelers manage to get so many interceptions every season, and I don't see how, considering they're always losing as well. So their opponent is also running the ball more, and they still manage to intercept the ball a lot. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so, I completely agree with you on that. That's something that I can't figure out for the life of me. So whenever I see teams doing it well, I'm just like, how are you doing that? I hate you.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. So yeah, just to cut it short, my favorite for the division is Josh with the Titans. If I could see a team knocking him off his throne, it will probably be the Colts, simply because he has the offense to keep up with Josh, counter the Jaguars' strength, and their Jaguars' offense I don't think is good enough. The gap between the Colts offense versus the Jags defense is bigger than the Jags offense against the Colts defense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect sense. I mean, you obviously watch. This is the division that I watch the most out of all the other divisions in the league, because it is just fascinating. Every single week, there's always an interesting game or an interesting matchup in here. And the team that I watch the most in our league outside of the Lions is the Jaguars. I am envious of that defense. I just don't know how he does it. I've been watching it for 2.5 seasons now. I still can't work out how he manages to basically put up so much low numbers. Manages to get sacks, interceptions, whatever it is.
I do not like playing that team. I have had 9 points, I think, against them, 6 points against, like, it's guaranteed it's going to be a 9-7, 13-7, and you're probably going to have like 300 players.
Yeah, and the frustrating thing about it is that you can't even figure out what you could do and then let it fail. Like, you can't even set your team up right. I'm just gonna go right. My running game is gonna win this game, whether I win or lose. My running game is going to do well. So your passing offense can do terribly, but my running game is going to do well, or vice versa. you can do
No,
whatever
when
you
I play that
want.
team, I literally go, I'm gonna do the thing I do best and just let the
Yeah.
pieces fall where they may.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that is the most frustrating kind of thing. Like, it's exact same thing on the reverse thing, going back again, what we had to face with Dennis and his offense. Because his passing game with Flacco was so good, and his running game with Peterson is so good, that honestly, it was like, well, let's just pick your poison of what you're going to go with here. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating division, and I mean, obviously, Rob, you've got down the Titans to win this division. Josh, I'm not going to give you the opportunity to say who you want to win because it's going to be pretty obvious, I'd imagine, deep down. So we'll leave that one. Let's move ourselves on to the final AFC division and talk a little bit about the American West. And before I let Rob come in and talk about the Raiders, I think we have to give some airtime to Josh before we have 10 minutes of Raiders talk. So Josh, off you go with this division.
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet because he's been hyping them up for a long time, man. I think Noah's finally got a grip on the new engine and his defense. I've been checking out their games and watching them on the sly. So Noah, people are still paying attention to you. His defense looks like it's back on point. The Raiders look like they could be a contender. I'm not sure if it's still fact or fiction yet. I want to see them play a contending team, but I feel like when we said that at the end of last season, they went on a march to show that they could beat those teams. So you might be looking at your division winner this year. It's between them and the Broncos, I believe. I think a bit of a gap has actually grown between them and the other two teams, the Chiefs and the Chargers. I know that the Chiefs GM is, really tried to address some of the problems that he had this last offseason, and the brain trust over there broke up a little bit. So, maybe he's got to step back in and put more of a handle on this team, and that'll help lift up their fortunes a bit more. But I've been a bit disappointed because, Devlin was a guy that I thought had, all the potential in the world to be a great quarterback. And he just got, it's not every day you see a team, let their franchise quarterback just walk and take the cap space. And the Chargers, I think, are just still on a slow rebuild grind. They haven't really made any bad moves, but I haven't really seen them make any, transformative moves. They've got to put the pieces together and do something, soon if they want to be an immediate, team that's talked about. Otherwise, just I guess keep making slow, steady moves in the draft and eventually hope you hit. I'm not really sure what the strategy is there, but I think that again, there's a gap between the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos and the Raiders. And if I had to pick anyone in that division, I think I'm leaning actually towards the silver and black. But I'll pass it on.
Well, yeah. Speaking of talking about silver and black, Rob, off you go.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to talk about too much about them because I do that in the chat anyway. I'll just like to clarify that the reason I like what they do is that there is a plan behind it, and I just like seeing plans and people sticking to them for more than 2 games. Essentially, it was clear that from when J-Ron took over, their plan was to essentially complement the running game of Lynch, but opening him up some running lanes because they had the offensive line back then. They had the Lynch, but they had nothing for the defense to focus on in terms of the passing game. So he addressed that by stealing Peyton Manning last season. He got the steal of possibly the season in terms of trade in Vincent Jackson, who he then renewed, and they just supplemented that with even more wide receivers this year. So it's actually a lot more balanced. So I expect Lynch to possibly be pushing for the rushing title this season, because if you choose to focus on the rush, then Amendola already had like 150 yards in week 1, whatever it was. So if you choose to focus on the pass instead, then that means you're really leaving Lynch 1v1 versus your linebacker or whoever's meant to pick him up. Yeah, good luck with that. I don't think they're going to win the division, though, this season. I picked them last season when they were fresh off a 4-win season to win the division, and they did, although the game didn't recognize them as winning the division, but that's a different point. I will actually pick Noah this season. I just think that I think anyway from halfway point last season all the way through to this season, Denver is actually ahead of Oakland in a division. I just think he's got to grips with the game. He's got to grips with his defense specifically, because that's what makes Noah. That's what separates Noah overall. Considering that when his defense is on point, I think it's still the best defense in the league. His offense is not exactly amazing, but when your defense doesn't allow more than 10 points a game, do you really need an offense? The Chiefs, I think their problem continues to be mass overspending on a few players. Like I think they're spending 23 million combined on just their two safeties, which is just a lot. Uh, I think they're spending 33 million across a linebacker, a free safety, and a strong safety. So that's essentially 30% of the cap gone on three players on your defense straight away, and their defense isn't even that good enough to show it. But it's a lot better progress compared to what it was financially. The Chargers, when their offense is clicking, it's amazing. When it isn't, they just get blown out, to be honest. But there are signs of improvement there. And that's a division I expect will be as competitive as the Titans division in a few seasons. Once some of those bad contracts of the Chiefs fall off the books, I think that's going to be a very, very interesting division because we're going to have we're going to have four good GMs. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, is that the most stable division in the league in terms of GMs?
Yeah, absolutely. It is certainly. Three of them I think have been around since at least. Well, two of them have been around since the start. One from season 2, and obviously J-Ron from last season. So
yeah. So I don't think any team. I don't think any division has had that so much stability in it, and it's this stability that sort of brings around like long-term plans coming into fruition. And I think we're about to see the benefit of that for the Chargers, the Raiders. We've already seen it. And Broncos coming to grips with a new engine. The Chiefs managing to open up some more cap after getting off those players. I think they're going to head into next season with a ton of cap. Yeah, they're going to have like 30 million, 35 million heading into next season with most of the roster still under contract.
yeah.
So that's going to be a very interesting division.
I find that for me it's harder to predict the teams that have been slowly building because you just don't know when they're going to hit that tipping point where where like talent finally just finally flips and they start winning. So I can see some of these. I can see like the Chargers maybe finally hitting that point just after slowly getting their affairs in order. But I just really think that this division's a bit top heavy. And maybe that's just me, but I think that it's like 2v2. I kind of want to go back though before you hop back in, Chris, and I want to change my pick. I really hadn't had a chance to look at the schedules in detail, and it just completely slipped my mind that this is the division that my division matches up against this year. And,
yeah, it is.
I have a lot of faith in my division, so I'm going with Noah to win this one because
he has more experience.
Outside of playing my division, he just has a lot of easier games. Like they play, he has the Panthers, and I just think that it's going to work out better for him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a complete consensus in the end on the American West.
I will say though that I expect that to be the hardest division to predict next season in terms of a positive way, not a negative way. So like I will be expecting all of those teams to at least be 0.600 team type of things. So not necessarily that it's going to be a difficult division to predict because no one's going to win a game like we currently have the NFC East, for example, which is a different discussion. So, okay, there we go. We start with the NFC East.
You've given us a nice intro into the NFC East, and well, this is obviously this primer Zach put together was before a certain QB from a certain New York team decided to go down for the season in week 1.
I'd like to clarify my last comment about those teams not winning games was actually referring to Eli Manning because the most stable team in that division has just lost their best player. So, which you got to feel bad for, to be honest. So early in the season,
it's brutal if you see
them and the Rams drafting a quarterback in the first or second round and then losing him for the majority of the season must really be a big blow when you've been a sub 0.500 team for so long.
There's a podcast for you. Is Teddy Bridgewater actually cursed?
Yeah, we'll have to do if he continues to get injured, we'll have to do a Teddy Bridgewater curse or something and get that going around on the CSFL. But let's focus on the East. Josh, what's your take on this one then?
That is completely and utterly wide open. I just feel really bad for the Giants. Like it sucks to lose your quarterback that early. That's happened to me a few seasons ago, and I was lucky that he just came back from injury faster, and I got him back around 4 weeks instead of the 8 weeks that it was originally projected, and that my backup could hold up. Because like for your backup to hold it down for an entire season, the Green Bay can tell you that's a miracle if you can pull that off. So with that being said, I think it's just completely wide open for every team. I don't really have with anyone that stands out. I think the Cowboys, Romo just hasn't had a good run in this league yet. Maybe he's due, but I really don't see that their offense got better this year. So, quarterback that's already been struggling with an offense that didn't get much better. That's not really a recipe for winning. And their defense is just, not one of the better ones in the league. I just, but that being said, the division is wide open because, when I go to the Eagles, again, I just, the Eagles defense last year was not that great either. And I can't really think of a move that was made in the offseason that stands out to me. I'm going to take a look at them again because I was just, trying to stare at them earlier when we first started talking to try to figure out what I was going to say for them. And, they have, a great run game, but I'm just not sure if, compared to the rest of the league, if they're in other divisions, how that will work out. But again, this division is now wide open, and I think that anybody can go on a run if they can just put together a good game plan and win their division games. And last but not least is the Redskins, which is who I would like to predict to win because they have the former Rookie of the Year as their quarterback, which I'm still a little bitter about because I think my running back should have got that one, but. He led the league in sacks last year, so I don't remember if they really picked up anyone to help them in their offensive line. So if he's getting 40, I think it was 40. I want to say the number 48 popped into my head. So if he's getting 40 plus sacks again this year, the division's wide open. So that's what I'm going to go with. And if Chris tries to make me pick somebody for this division, I'm just going to say open again.
Yeah, and Rob, you kind of agree with that view that this is probably a division that's open, and whoever gets on a run could probably take it this year.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think it's the first team to get to 8 wins is probably going to be the favorite to take the division. To be honest, it's the opposite of the NFC, the AFC South. It's just basically a lot of teams with what ifs all over them. I've been picking Adam and the Eagles since as long as I can remember being involved in the game. To be honest, since 2011, I think I've been picking the Eagles to win the division, and they've let me down every single time. I'm not going to do it this season. Hopefully, they'll do it anyway. No, I don't know. There's been quite a bit of turnaround in the Cowboys to be able to predict what they're going to do. The Giants are just very unfortunate. It just like if Manning hadn't got injured, it's just such an easy. Well, Giants are going to win this division. They're going to get to 10, 11 wins, and thank you very much. Now it's just a complete toss-up to who we think is sort of like more ready. And to be honest, I think I still have to go with the Giants. I just think that if the Giants get Manning back with 4 games to go, that's going to be 4 wins at the end of the season. Those 4 wins could be the difference between them managing to get to 9 wins.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that because I'm sorry to interrupt. I just really wanted to say I'm still going to pick the Giants. I thought you guys would laugh at me if I said that. So I'm glad you said it first.
To give you an idea.
Hang on. So what we're saying here is we're essentially saying that the Giants without a quarterback for 12 weeks, possibly of the 16-week season, possibly like over 3/4 of their games, is still going to take this division.
Yes, because all their difficult games.
Still win the division.
I think all their difficult games are being played while he's out anyway. So he plays Panthers in week 3, Lions in week 5, and Cardinals in week 7. Manning's expected to be back in week 12, let's say. His program from then on is Washington, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Washington, Cincinnati, and 49ers. So of those, let's say he makes it back for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those games. If that's a 5-1 schedule right there, and given how the NFC East is, if he makes it to 4 wins by then. He just picks up those 5 games. That's 9 wins. That's probably enough for that division.
Oh, that's an interesting take. Interesting.
Yeah, and I was
take.
gonna say, what if he comes back sooner? Because that does happen sometimes.
Then he gets to play the Cowboys or the Rams and the Cowboys again. So that could be
Yep.
2 divisional games that sort of knock the Cowboys down anyway.
And that was my original reasoning. Like, I've had a lot of players with the 12-week injury, and sometimes they come back in 8. So
yeah, I think the playoffs is still a real possibility for the Giants. If not for winning the division, I think they'll easily be able to get to 9 wins, and that should be a wild card anyway in the way the NFC shapes up.
It's a really interesting take you guys have had there, and I think that's kind of gives an interesting view on how you can maybe manage without a quarterback if your cards are sort of land right for you in your division. But
I just say they do have Arian Foster running the ball for them, so it's not it's not a scrub. They have a good running game that can.
Yeah, and they have tools. They have tools on offense outside of
exactly.
Manning. So yeah,
Exactly.
I can understand that. So I guess saying the Giants, despite that, let's move on to the NFC North then and talk about this division. Josh, I'm probably going to open up to you first, bearing in mind that Rob is on the Lions staff. So what's your take on this one?
I guess I'll start at the top with the Detroit Lions. I think that you guys had a really interesting offseason. It was kind of fun to watch how you guys just, flip talent into better talent or more manageable contracts so you could snatch other talent. It's just, if anybody, loves a really good money ball sort of a style of management of this game, your franchise is one to really watch. And so is the one that's right below you in this ranking. But when it comes to you guys, I think that one of the things that I personally think that you learned in the Super Bowl was that you just got to be more balanced. You guys had one of the most dominant, air offenses that we've ever had. But when it came into the playoffs, you guys couldn't really move the ball against the Ravens. So I think you guys made a lot of moves to manage that. So you're going to be right up there for the top of the division. I do think that personally moving to the next team, that it's this team's time. And if there is a time, I think that they'll take it now because they continue to have probably in sheer talent, the most talented team in the league. They probably even lead in overall if you average the ratings. So I think that along with their GM, that Green Bay has a really good chance to win behind the arm of Aaron Rodgers, and they just had a really, really good draft. But I think every single year we kind of compliment the Packers on just how good their draft is. So hopefully they just stay healthy and we can see really what the max upside of this team is. I know that when I've played them healthy, it's been a fantastic game to watch. And so, I just really think that this team couldn't make it to the postseason without losing Aaron Rodgers. They could really show us something. The next team, I think that if they're in any other division, they would win it. Like just flat out. The Bears have gotten so much out of it that it makes me kind of watch their games now to see different ways to get my less than accurate quarterback to be more accurate, which I think is the best compliment you can give anybody that, I want to spend time out of my day watching what you do to see if I can get better from it. So, really good job to what's happening over there. I love the fact that their offense has become more of a air raid, even though they don't have a traditionally really accurate quarterback. And it's really weird that Vic is kind of having a career renaissance as a behind his arm talent more so than his leg talent. And if he kind of gets the two going, I think that he could give either one of you a run for your money. But ultimately, I see that either the Lions or the Packers winning this division, and that's kind of where I don't even want to call it a gap, more so than a cliff starts, because the Vikings just have a lot to do to catch up to the big three. So, moving on.
And Rob, I guess open to you to talk about the other three.
Yeah, I'll just preface it by saying that with us, our plan was quite straightforward. We saw what our gap was with the Ravens, so we tried to sort of like get more bodies rather than quality. We went with rather than quality. We went with quantity, just to sort of like get some of our players a few breathers because we're blowing out teams in the first half, and then because our entire defense was the exact same one for the entire game, they were just gassed by the fourth quarter. At which point teams were closing the gap. So that was our essential primary goal. We'll see how it works against the Packers this week. It's probably the first real test of how that goes. Speaking of, I think after 4 drafts, it's been now that Zach's been involved in. Is it 4 drafts? 2014.
Yeah, 4, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so.
think in my opinion, he is the best drafter in the league. Every single player he picks up is instant starter on the majority of the teams in the league. I think that sort of like goes hand in hand with you, Josh, but you're a different type of drafter. Like you managed to pick up some gems in the 4th and 5th round that become very good players, whereas Zach just sort of like anyone he drafts is almost always starter that moment in time, the moment he drafts him. It just seems like it. Might be wrong, might be exaggerating, but it just seems like any player that every time the file updates with a drafted player of the Packers, you're like, how the hell did he get that guy?
Yeah, no, I think you're pretty dead on there. I want to agree with that before I lose that train of thought, because I've gotten to the point now where if he's even anywhere remotely near me in the draft, that I know I have to make a move to get above you guys. It's him and you. And just like, it's kind of funny because we talk on the sidelines, and I kind of tell you guys like, I kind of I see the draft going this way. I'm immediately trying to move up, because otherwise, Zach's going to steal that player, and it's the same. It's that way 3-4 years in a row now.
Yeah, it's always a concern. Like when we wanted that, I'm going to go back to that fullback again. We wanted that fullback, and I'm like, no way, Zach is going to take him with the 27th pick in the 2nd round of the draft. A fullback. We had the 28th pick, and Chris is like, should we go to 26? We have 26 available to us. I'm like, no need. And then he goes 5 minutes later. I was just so aggravated with that. And then anyway, I'll just proceed to the other teams. Chicago, you just got to feel sorry for him. Not feel sorry for him per se, but honestly, as Zach writes up, that any other division in the conference, he wins it. I'd go as far as to say is any other division except for the AFC South, he wins, to be honest. And I include the Ravens division there, not necessarily because he would beat the Ravens, but because he'd have more easier divisional games. Then all he'd have to do is split the games with the Ravens, and that could be a team that would challenge for that division there. Just that he has 4 very tough games with the Lions and the Packers, and he's it depends who he gets paired up with on the AFC as well. It's not he doesn't have an easy schedule by any means. Minnesota is in a difficult situation because he has 3 very good teams ahead of him. It's sort of like the Texans in the AFC South. At the same time, I think that if anything, that's a good and steep learning curve that you can get to quickly, because you can watch 6 games against good teams, and you can sort of use that to build your team as well as fast as possible. And dynasties don't last forever. So whatever us and the Packers are doing, it's not going to last forever. At some point, our players are going to get old. Our players are going to get contracts that we can't afford anymore. It all turns around. He just has to position himself in a way that he can capitalize on that when it comes around. I agree with Zach. I've been agreeing with I've been agreeing with Josh for a while that it's the Packers' time. I thought the Packers would have pipped us last season had Rodgers not got injured. Although we had already won the 2 games. I thought that they were going to pip us to it last season. Their talent is just stacked everywhere. At some point, you just look through it and you're like, how can you afford all of these guys? It's not even fair. Not that I'm saying that as a Lions guy. I don't want to get misconstrued. We have a lot of talent ourselves, but it just seems like there is stacked talent on the Packers everywhere. Whereas with us, you can find 1 or 2 players. You're like, yeah, the Packers are better. I think Zach has also been spending some time on his playbook. I've seen him on Discord blabbering that, not blabbering, on the side panel where it tells you what people are playing and stuff. I've seen Zach quite a bit in game, so I think he's been tinkering with playbooks. So I think this is his time to win the division and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl as well. I'll go that far.
Yeah, interesting take from both of you. Just before we move on to the next one, I just want to throw one comment in here about this division. for me, the biggest pickup that the Packers had this offseason was nothing to do with the draft. It's the fact they managed to get Chad Henne as a backup quarterback. Considering Rodgers has gone down so often in key moments for this Packers team, they've actually got someone who is actually competent to play quarterback for them now. And that was probably been the biggest thing that's held them back over the past couple of seasons, is because for those of you who haven't been in the league very long, Rodgers seems to always go down at the crucial moment for that Packers team.
He always seems to go down. He always seems to go down close to or around a tough 4-week schedule, or late enough in the season that he misses the playoffs. It's one of the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that the two things that he mentions about himself in linebacker and free safety, I'm informed that he is looking to address the free safety part, and he is close to getting someone there. So I don't want to ruin the surprise there, but I'm informed that he might be getting someone there soon. So that could be one less hole for him to have to be concerned about.
Interesting. Let's move on to the NFC South then. A division that historically has been the Saints division for a very long period of time. That changed last season. We now have the Panthers with talent. The Buccaneers are sort of resurgence. The Falcons managed to pip in as well last year and put up a solid performance. Rob, what's your take on this one? Saints down the bottom according to Zach, and the Panthers maybe are the elite team in this division?
That currently, can we just say that looks like a reverse standing of how it used to be a few years ago? The way that Zach has them out as Saints and Falcons, Bucks, and Panthers. Panthers have somehow managed to make Cam Newton a deep threat pocket QB, which is quite impressive. If you just put the Cam Newton that we know, that we watch on Sundays, and you tell someone that guy is a pocket passing deep threat, you're like, really? It works for the Panthers. Their offense has just taken off in the last 7 or 8 weeks, going back to last season. So that's interesting. The Bucks have been persistent about one method. They've got a new GM now in taking on half of the brainchild of the former Kansas City Chiefs. Some of those players on that team are just so elite. I mean, you look at some players and you're like, how does that player have such good ratings? Whether it's Reggie Bush or Pouncey or Peters, the tackle, who all of the players have. Oh no, sorry, Peters left. Just some players are just so elite on that team that they'll pick up wins. The Falcons have made some moves. I like generally their games and the way they set out. They're a tough team to beat, and they're always in with a shout. If I'm not mistaken, I'm just trying to recall my stats. I think they were one of the top 5 teams that were either winning or close to or losing by fine margins going into the fourth quarter. It's always there that they start to lose the game. It just seems that way. The Saints, I've been vocal about them and their trades and stuff, but about some of their trades and how they don't add up, in my opinion, to what he's setting out to do. We'll give it a season or two to see how it pans out. I'm still skeptical about it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I can see what he's doing or anything. I don't understand it. It's, in my opinion, that is that he's lost way too much talent and regained too little in return. That's just my opinion. Hopefully it works out for him, because the Saints are sort of like a legacy team in the division now, in the league now. So it's sort of like, it's disheartening seeing him that far down for 2 seasons now, considering the team they were. Hopefully, Vikes Rule can bring him back as soon as possible.
It's like what you said in the previous thing. Dynasties don't last.
Yeah,
the Saints dynasty has definitely not lasted now. Through aging and through trades and changes of GMs through the past couple of seasons.
I agree with Zach though that it's the Panthers division to lose, and I don't expect them to be even within 4 games of second, to be honest.
Yeah, and Josh, what's your take on this one? Do you agree with Rob?
So actually, I don't know why. I just find these next 2 divisions really fun. Personally, I like what the Bucks have going with their offense. I mean, and their team, and I really love what happened with them over training camp, especially for a new GM to see a lot of your players boom like that. That has to be a great feeling. So when I look at that division, I think it's really cool that Chris has basically gotten Cam Newton to become. I think the quarterback I'm thinking about is Dante Culpepper of the Vikings back in the day, who just his entire offense was just throwing bombs to Randy Moss over and over and over, and it worked because he was Randy Moss. I kind of feel like the same thing is happening with the Panthers, but in addition to that, Chris has finally started using some of his own playbooks instead of using the game constructor ones, which I think is just kind of a quad leap for all of us when we finally get that working for us. The Bucks again, I think, are just a really cool team to watch. I think having a new GM who's set with another GM for a while and kind of just watched how the league worked is going to be really cool to watch. We haven't really had a GM do that yet because Stone won't leave Detroit, so it'll be cool to see if being an assistant GM has any impact on how good of a GM you are once you actually get a team. And I think that he has a solid foundation to work with. So where he has them at 8-8 I think is a pretty solid assessment. When you look at the Falcons, I'm excited to see another GM going full tilt with using a rushing quarterback. I have not had a compatriot in arms that I can share game tape with and strategies and stuff like that with, other than Tosi. So it'd be cool to see our duo become a trio. That being said, I just really don't know what to think of their season. I think that they could, be 9-7 or 7-9. I think that they're. I hate to make this comparison because it's my team in real life, but I think they're essentially the Tennessee Titans of the early 2000s. That they could, he could be Jeff Fisher. He could either go 9-7 or 7-9, or honestly 8-8. And the Saints, I think that they're going to have a rough go this season. I don't think it's because of anything in particular the new GM did when he came in. I think that the GM right before him had already put them on a downward slide because they just basically got unmanaged for an entire season because he whether the computer difficulties, I think is what happened, just wasn't able to come in and do anything with the team. So they just kind of stagnated and their contracts didn't get extended. So I think a lot of the damage to the legacy aspect of the team was already done before Mike's Rule got in there. And from here on out, I just hope he has a plan with what he's doing. And if I had to pick someone for the division, I'm going with again with Rob in the order that it's in right now. I think it's the Panthers division to lose, but I could see the Bucks and the Falcons just catching fire, and especially with going back to an earlier comment, I don't think it's necessarily a bluff because Brooks outwardly admitted that he nerfed it when it came to the running. That I think he said on the solo side, GMs complained that their quarterbacks ran when they didn't want them to often, so he just took it away completely, and now they just only run if you do often or you do pre-made plays. They don't have any sort of improvisational ability anymore, so that I would consider that a nerf. And so I'm happy that he went back and actually just kind of made sure the plays and the engine worked now. So if that's a buff, I'll take it because I lost 50 yards of offensive game last season, and I'm glad to have it back. So moving on.
I'd just like to clarify that when we do this pod again in about 4 months' time, looking forward to the 2016 season, I think that the Bucks will be at the very least on a level footing with the Panthers, because I think that Davey will have that team completely flipped 180 from where it was last season, the season before, to where it will be next season. And that's just an opinion because he's going to have a ton of cap coming up. And yeah, he's going to have about 40 million cap, and he's going to have his best player still under contract. And I just think that it's going to be completely different. So I hope KW takes advantage of the division while he still can, because he could be battling for 10 wins again next season, back to where he was for a few seasons under Rouse. So that's just an opinion.
Yeah, no, interesting take from both of you on this one, and in projections in terms of the season now and the season going forward. I guess you're both sort of saying Panthers now, but maybe that stranglehold on that division might not last that long based on the other two or three teams and what they're doing. Shall we finish off the preview and look at the National West? Josh, you said that this was an interesting division. You enjoy looking in on this one. Why is that? Let's hear that. Hear your reasons for it.
Yeah, just like the last division, I think that this one too is another one that's just kind of like dominated by really good offenses. And what do we watch football for? If not to see, the ball go through the air. I think I'm one of those like weird people who like really love the good defensive game, but most fans tune in to see touchdowns. And just the last division of this one, these divisions are about touchdowns. And so starting off with the Cardinals, man, that offense is a machine. I think that they've put up close to 5,000 yards every single year. So Schaub is probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league, and maybe eventually, he's going to be due for his run at the MVP because he's definitely put up the numbers every single season, if not gotten the notice or the notoriety or the wins. So, I'm not sure which division they're matched up with right now. So I couldn't off the top of my head tell you if their schedule would support them going on a good run, but I could see the Cardinals. I could see the Cardinals definitely, having just another stellar year. Moving on to the next team, the 49ers. They got a great deal on Roddy White because at this point in the offseason, I was pretty much decided that I wanted to send him to this conference, period, and whatever deal I got, and that there were a few teams that I wanted to send him to that I was sure he would play against. So I'm very happy that he's on the 49ers because at this point I was feeling some type of way with some of my negotiating. So I hope that he has a standout year and that Kaepernick finally has someone that he can, get about 1,500 yards with. I think that Roddy is still a top wide receiver in this league. He's been pigeonholed in the number 2 spot. And if there is any sort of, thing in this engine where, winning makes players better, he's got 2 Super Bowl rings. So, Tennessee, thanks, Roddy White. I think the 49ers, if they can get Kaepernick running, all joking aside, have a great chance to be better than the 6-10 that they're put in right now. I could really see them being a 500 team because they don't really have a bad roster, more so than they just have a few very specific holes that just need to be addressed. The next team, the Seahawks, they had it has written a quiet offseason, but I think they've had a good offseason because they didn't really lose any talent. They've cleared up cap space, and I think that they're just going to steadily get better. That being said, they don't really have a quarterback that I think that could get them to the promised land right now. And I do agree with the 5-11. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I do have hope that with some good luck in the lottery that they'll be able to address some of those issues. And same thing for the Rams. They're just they're rebuilding. The Rams and the Seahawks are kind of just here to have a nice solid season, see some progress, and get to the draft. But the cool thing I do kind of see with all these teams is that for some reason last season this division put up a lot of touchdowns. So even with the losses, some of the scores were really interesting to look at, and some of them went on surprising marches at the end of the season. So it'll be kind of cool to see what happens. And that's kind of why they're interested in me.
Yeah, interesting take on the division. Rob, do you see anyone outside of the Cardinals taking this division this year?
Realistically, no. I'd just like to fill in with what Josh said with their schedule. This division is paired with yours, Josh. So the Cardinals get to play you, the Titans, the Jaguars, the Colts, and the Texans. They're also partnered with the East in the NFC as well. So I think the Cardinals are going to be able to pick up 4 wins there against the East, the NFC East. But I don't think they're going to be able to pick up a win against the AFC South, except for possibly the Texans. So we're looking at essentially them going 5-3 across those games. But then it's the divisional games, which I think they're going to win out, to be honest, 6-0. So we're looking at possibly 11 wins. That just yeah. I think that it's the Cardinals because I just don't see the other teams making it to 11 wins. Regarding your Schaub comment about him running for an MVP soon, it probably will happen sooner rather than later. It just really helps when your 2 wide receivers are Jennings and Fitzgerald, because like that combination of wide receiver, they'd possibly be short of Calvin Johnson. They're probably like the second and the third best wide receiver in the league, both on the same team. So
yeah, I think I had the only starter counter. I think I had the only duel to rival that, and I just broke them up. So the next closest thing might be you guys now.
And like considering that their running back is possibly the most scary combination of a running back in the league, considering he has 90 plus speed and 75 plus strength. In Trent Richardson, that guy, when he finds a hole, he's gone, and there's no chance your cornerback or your safeties are going to bring him down because the defensive line is way too slow for him. The linebackers can't keep up, so it's up to your safeties to bring him down. And with 70-something speed, that's not really going to happen. Every time we play him, he goes up for 150, 160 yards. Our usual game planning discussion with Chris when we're playing the Cardinals is, right, Richardson is going to get 170 against us. Let's try and stop the rest. That's pretty much what our game planning discussion is against the Cardinals, and I think that's the case for most of the teams. Like you just pick your poison. Like, do you allow Richardson 170, 180 yards and just hope to stop Jennings and Fitzgerald, or do you try and stop them and just or do you allow them to feed and try and stop Richardson? It's just a case of pick your poison essentially and hope you can match him. I just don't think the other three teams are there yet. I'd like to emphasize that the Rams could have been 4 wins better off, but they're just so unlucky losing their drafted quarterback for that long. So 4-12 seems about right now. I would have thought they could have possibly reached 6 or 7 wins had they had a healthy quarterback. They have Bradford, admittedly. It would probably be nice for them to have the guy they drafted. That's all.
Yeah, no, interesting takes from both of you from that division. Probably going to be the Cardinals for another season, but the other three maybe getting a little bit closer from what I sense from what you've been both saying there. So that kind of brings us to a recap in terms of the division previews and the conference previews. Normally what we tend to do is we'll scroll down here and we tend to obviously talk a little bit about Zach's prediction in terms of who he feels is going to eventually win and get through in both conferences. But I don't necessarily want to do that today because I think it's probably a little bit too early to comment on this, and we haven't got Zach to kind of break down some of his suggestions here. So I kind of want to ask you both, what teams do you see surprising, being surprising everyone this year, be it performance, wins, surprise results, etc. In both conference, one for each conference maybe. Josh, have you got any initial thoughts on that? Or Rob, feel free to dive in as well.
If I had to pick a team out of the NFC, I'm not going to go over a surprise team that could win the division because I think the Panthers' offense could be a team that could upset teams in the playoffs. But we're expecting to win a division anyway, which could also result in them being a wild card team. So I'm not really going to consider that a surprise. If I had to pick a surprise team coming out of deep in their own division and coming far in the playoffs, it should be the Bears. I just think that they're the best of the rest, and it looks like they'll be vying for that second wild card place. And if they get into the wild cards, they're not going to be the sort of team you want to face. Out of the AFC, I think although Zach has them to win their division, I think they're going to be more of a surprise package simply because they're coming out of the Ravens division and it's going to be the Browns. I think although I'm expecting them to not be able to win the division, I think that once they get into the playoffs and they've tweaked a couple of things over the course of the season, I think that's a team that could be a difficult week 1 matchup in the playoffs. Picking the Colts would be too easy, to be honest, in my opinion, simply because much like the Panthers, they can roll up in week 1 of the playoffs against you, put up 50, and then you're going home. The Browns aren't that kind of team. They're not the kind of team they're going to roll up, put up 50, and then leave. It's going to be more of a scrappy, close-fought game. It's just that I'm thinking that V Gorilla is closer to the roster that he will want to have, and I think that as a result, that could be an upset waiting to happen. Like if whoever wins the division, the AFC South, for example, not the South, the West, for example, I'm picking the Broncos. I'm not so sure that Noah would want to face V Gorilla in the first round of the playoffs because that's not going to be an easy matchup. I don't think that the team that comes out of the AFC East, be it the Bills or the Patriots, would want to face the Browns. So those are my two teams if I had to pick two.
Yeah, no, interesting takes. Josh, do you have two sort of surprise teams, one from each conference that you have in your mind?
Yeah, I regret stopping to get something to drink because mine kind of mirrored his. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit different on one of them. I am gonna just match you on the Bears. I just really like what they've done. And I think that if they again were in any other division, like it was said, the Bears would probably win it all. Um, Going to my conference, which is where I think I need to try to go ahead and go with my secondary team. I'm going to stick with the Colts. I think that their offense is just a machine. I just got picked apart by that offense on the college side. So I have a lot of respect for what Jed is figuring out over there because I know he's put a lot of hours into it. I am interested to see how that will work out on the pro side because I know that, I mean, speaking for myself personally, the pro side is where I have, every single formation field and all of that kind of stuff. So I know that the competition has been just a little bit more, and I know the college league is definitely getting to that point. So it'll be interesting to see if it relates on this side as well. But I think it will because they're similar engines. So everyone better get ready for folks to come into your house and possibly put 40 on you. And you just gotta, make sure that you're equipped to at least match that, or at least get one or two stops and come close to that. Otherwise, it's just going to be a lot of touchdowns. I could really see their quarterback getting the MVP this season because I think that he is going to really approach. I'm not sure what the record is, but I think 50 touchdowns sounds like reasonable for a record. So I'm going to say 50, and I think that that's probably doable. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I'd just like to clarify that the only reason I'm not picking Jed and the Colts, although I like what they're doing and everything, and they are the first team I watch and all that I said earlier, is that I don't want to pick as a surprise team a team that's going to be top three in anything, and I expect the Colts to be a top three offense this season. So once you're a top three offense or defense, you're no longer much of a surprise. That's just my opinion on it.
To be a top three defense.
Really? Oh, okay. I can't go with that. The record, by the way, is 46 touchdowns. I'm just looking at it now, and that's held by Stafford from last season. The second is Smith, who's on 41, who also set it last season. So he's close.
Gorilla has managed to have really good defenses without nearly as much talent as he has this year. So I'm just kind of like curious to see if if logically it just makes sense. Well, if he did it with no talent, what should he do now that he has talent? So
okay, yeah, but now we're going on a hypothetical type of thing. Whereas Jed has proven that he does have a top three offense. I think he did have a top three offense last season, if I'm not mistaken. So so I just think that I find it difficult picking as a surprise package someone who's a top three in anything so large. It's not like we're saying that he's the top three in pancakes on the season kind of thing. He's the top three offense on the season, so it's automatically going to be try and keep up type of job. And the defensive side has not been figured out by too many teams in the league, to be honest. I mean, short of the Ravens and Noah and you, I'm not so sure that many teams can guarantee that they can keep a team to under 20. So how many teams in the league out of the 32 GMs that we have can say hand on heart, I am confident of stopping every team to under 20 points? Yeah, not many.
Yeah, it's about 12, 10, maybe.
Yeah, some really interesting takes there from both of you, and looking at the divisions and looking at surprises possibly that could happen. That kind of brings us to the end of this marathon season preview. I'm sure we'll be back in probably next week for a bit more of a detailed breakdown in terms of how the results have gone, considering the division games would have started at that point. But Rob, Josh, thank you very much for coming on the show and breaking down Zach's primer here in terms of how the season possibly could look at the beginning here, as we've just played game one. Everything is still open, but best of luck to every GM who's in the league for this season.
Yeah, if you made it this far, congratulations.